Everyone, welcome back to Touch the Fire Twice. I'm Joshua, and I'm here today to do a Bath & Body Works White Barn Candle Company candle haul and overview of 4 candles from the post-Candle Day Hibernation Station candle collections. But first, if you are new to Touch the Fire Twice, welcome. My mission here is to share my love and passion for fine home fragrance as an enthusiast, an educator, a reviewer, to inspire you to increase your own fragrance knowledge and understanding, ultimately enhancing the scent memories that you create. If you want to learn more about what I do, why I do it, how I do it, you can check out my website at TouchTheFireTwice.com. But for now, let's dig into this haul and first impressions overview. So this collection or collections were referred to, at least internally and sort of in the candle community from Bath & Body Works internal documents, as the Hibernation Station collections. There was one that was Hibernation Station leather and another Hibernation Station fabric, really just relating to the actual labels, one representing sort of a leather look and the other representing more of a fabrics textile look. And so these were released in some stores right on Candle Day or Candle Day weekend, I suppose it really was. And other stores didn't release them until a few days later or sort of that following week. So these, for the most part, were in stores mid-December. I imagine there's still some stores that do have stock of at least some of these scents, though on the website when I looked, none of them are there, but you can't really trust the website. They could add, remove, what have you. I was under the impression that these were sort of a late winter collection that would sort of stay in stock for 3 to 5 weeks like most collections do, rather than sort of a single pour, one and done post-Candle Day release, but that may have been the case. So your mileage may vary. Not sure if you still have access to these or not, but if so, hopefully this can help. Otherwise, we're just reviewing candles that you've either sniffed or own or never got a chance to, but regardless, we're here to talk about them, right? So there were 4 candles in the fabric Hibernation Station: Cuddle Weather, Cozy Cashmere, Fresh Coconut and Cotton, and Pistachio and Toasted Vanilla. I will say Cuddle Weather I purchased back in the late summer, early fall, reviewed it. Wasn't the biggest fan of it. It just wasn't my favorite. Sort of a gingerbread, but nothing really special about it. The Cozy Cashmere has always been a bit of a pass for me, just not really my interest. And then the Fresh Coconut and Cotton I did purchase, which I will review today. And I also purchased the Pistachio and Toasted Vanilla. That one is so incredible. I bought a couple of those, in fact, that I didn't even want to put it in this haul because it deserves its own in-depth sniff and comparison review when it comes to this beautiful, nutty, sweet, rich, warm, comforting gourmand. It is just the perfect blend between a conceptual gourmand and a sort of somewhat literal edible bakery gourmand. It just toes the line right in the middle and is so rich and comforting. I just love it. And there are a lot of other candles that I think it could be compared to, though I don't believe a direct repackage of any. And so that will appear in its own video, but I did purchase at least one other from the fabric collection, which is the Fresh Coconut and Cotton. I believe this candle came out last year maybe as a single wick, sort of a fan favorite. Flew under my radar. A lot of times those white t-shirt laundry day cotton scents aren't always my bag. I will say the Fresh Cotton Slacken & Co. that was released for many years back in, the early mid-aughts, 2000s. I really did enjoy that one. It's super, super strong, sort of an air cleaner. And some of the, seashore cottons that were a signature collection, you don't really see them much as candles almost ever, and certainly not anymore. But I like that as well. And some of the laundry ones are a little bit too laundry detergent for me versus just a nice soft linen. I did enjoy the linen and lavender, though that's more lavender than linen. But this one was unique in that, yes, it is sort of cotton, but it's not just your textile laundry detergent cotton that sometimes cotton blends evoke. So notes on this one: coconut, coastal breeze, and beachside cotton. It's not telling us a whole lot other than really the name of the candle. But sniffing it, it is really nice. It is heavy on that coconut. The cotton, again, cotton is really hard to say exactly what it is. It's generally a mix of maybe some musks, maybe some florals, some synthetic notes as well to evoke the feeling of the fresh ozonic breeze, and a little bit of a powder and a little bit of maybe some green in the air, just that fresh spring day. The coconut in here leans similar to sort of coconut sunscreens, or, I was in high school guilty of tanning a couple of times. Luckily, not very often, didn't, give me a lot of wrinkles. I didn't do it probably more than a handful of times in high school, before a spring break trip or something like that. But I remember there was this sort of not sunscreen, but like, I guess, sun oil or whatever that's supposed to help, the tan set. And it was a sort of this creamy gel-like consistency. And it had a coconut scent to it that is very, very similar to this. A lot of folks say the classic suntan candle from Bath & Body Works, Slack & Co. is sort of a sunscreen or tanning oil scent. Totally agree, but they're two sides of the same coin. They're different. They are both coconut. They are both often blends that are used for sunscreens or tanning oils, but they're not really the same other than them both being coconut and used for that purpose. But this reminds me of that from, early 2000s, late 90s, but in a good way, because it's a soft, sweet, almost kind of coconut husk. It's borderline tropical, but it doesn't read, beach paradise, escape to the tropics, get out of the winter doldrums. It's not so much that, which those ones kind of bug me when they're overly fruity, tropical, and trying to take you to the Caribbean. And this one, it is softly, sweetly coconut. There's more to it, of course, than just cotton, breeze, and coconut. The coconut is a bit similar to that ingredients collection, Coconut and Vetiver, from early 2022, in that it's a natural, fresh coconut, but doesn't lean particularly edible. Sort of a bit of that husk, kind of earthy, but still that sweetness. There is a sweetness to this. Like a background of perhaps some sort of nectar of a fruit. Can't put my finger on it. Almost just like maybe like, honestly, sugarcane. Just a sweetness added to this coconut. But that cotton, whether it's ozonic or a powdery floral, something in there, almost a bit of a sheer musk to bring it down, to make it less bright, or make it a bit more sort of luxury and sophisticated, closer to a body fragrance or parfum. And it's just really comforting. A little bit nostalgic for me because that coconut does kind of transport me to the tanning bed. Of all places, can you imagine me going I need to get my tan? It's ridiculous. But I like this. And it does also remind me just a little bit, like I said, of suntan. Now the notes in suntan, at least currently, most recently, were listed as sun-kissed citrus, orange blossoms, and coconut husk. Don't so much get the citrus in here, but perhaps the blossom. There's a bit of a powderiness in here. And that coconut, but it is not as conceptual as suntan. This leans a little bit more like a straightforward sweetened coconut almost to me, versus there's a heavier hit of kind of that fluffy towel, powdery, almost root-like freshness in your suntan. So I really enjoy this though. I think it's gonna be really nice. It doesn't really go like a year-round spa or fresh for me. The coconut really does make it close to summer, though I suppose I could burn this on like a bright spring day, but it's certainly not one of those like fresh winter days when it's 60 degrees out and you just want to like feel freshness. This one leans a little bit too warm for me for that. So the fresh coconut and cotton alongside the toasted pistachio and vanilla are the two I purchased from the Hibernation Station fabric collection. In-depth sniff and comparison review coming soon on the toasted pistachio and vanilla. And now we jump over to the Hibernation Station leather collection, which had 4 candles in it. I purchased 3 of the 4. The only one I did not purchase is Palo Santo. I like Palo Santo wood. The Palo Santo at Bath & Body Works is fine. I don't find it particularly enchanting or enriching or invigorating, and so I've never purchased it. It's nice, but I'd rather get something a little bit more intense and unique for a Palo Santo blend. But I did purchase the other 3. So let's start with Pink Rose and Leather. Now this one I thought at first was part of the Rose and test collection from, gosh, at this point, 3-4 years ago, I guess, almost. So maybe it would be a little bit late for that. But there was a sort of new variation to how they were doing test collections of Bath & Body Works. Very different from how when I lived in New York City and did test hauls from, on this channel back 2012 to 2014. How they tested collections then, they were a bit more sort of ready for prime time. They tested them and then either they brought a few out or all of them, or they just completely failed. Whereas in recent years, their testing is a little bit different, where they do kind of a traditional plain black jar with a label on the front that just really has the name. So they had the Oud collection that was, oud plus the other ingredient, or maybe a little bit of conceptual name to it, like Scotch Lounge or something. And they had a Pine collection, very, very similar execution. And then they had a Rose collection, very similar execution, where it was just rose leather or rose tea. And so I thought that maybe this was one of those candles, because they basically just, I kind of appreciate, they're testing not so much the visual merchandising, the marketing, the design, or the names. They're more so testing, kind of straight testing, blind testing the fragrance to see, okay, of these 8 or 10, what 2 to 4 are the best sellers that would make sense, not just then releasing as they are, although I certainly wouldn't mind that, but more so taking them, weaving them into other collections in the coming year or years, likely with full different marketing, a different name, but that same fragrance, because people are, again, primarily, hopefully, purchasing based on the fragrance, not just the marketing, though that obviously is a major part of it for many brands, including Bath & Body Works. And so I thought maybe this was from that collection, but when I went through the list, I actually don't think so. So I'm sure others have talked about if this was a direct repackage from that Test Rose collection or something else, but I think it may not have been, in fact. Notes on this one: supple leather, blooming rose petals, comforting patchouli. So a bit straightforward, giving us the 3 notes there. I'd love to hear a little bit more, but the idea of a rose and leather, I think, kind of leans toward your high-end fragrance or luxury fragrance, or at least, body fragrance parfums. When you think of, there are a lot of either tea and rose or leather and rose. Think of Boy Smells. Boy Smells is very great at playing with the idea of gender role, gender identity, the masculine, the feminine, the genderless, genderful fragrances. So having something that's heavy like a leather and, your cowboy, and throwing in that feminine rose to really counteract and balance that is something that they do at Boy Smells very consistently and very well. And so I kind of like that they were playing with that here, but as others have said, I think they've kind of missed the mark a bit on it. So sniffing it, it is perhaps the most authentic leather I've ever smelled from Bath & Body Works, though they haven't done much in the way of leather. They had that leather and brandy candle in the Neutrals collection last year, which I did not purchase that one. They've played with some leather notes in their men's signature collection. I'm generally not a fan of most of those because they lean a little bit generic, I think, for me, or just a little bit too mainstream crowd pleasing. I want something that's a little bit different, a little strange sometimes, as I have my nose in a mass market Bath & Body Works candle, so I'm not trying to be bougie like that, but this leather is good because it does smell fairly authentic, like a leather wallet, sort of that soft Napa leather. It's not the artificiality of like a fresh car leather, not really super synthetic chemically. And so that works for me. It's not overwhelming because a lot of times, for instance, the Golden Tobacco from Kringle Candle Company, I purchased that in a Daylight last year, and it has a lot of different woods in it and some leathers and some suede and tobacco leaf and things like that. And it just wasn't my favorite, though I do like tobacco in fine fragrance. But the leather in there reminds me a bit of the leather in here, but this is not overwhelmed with a lot of other things, so I think I appreciate that. So solid on the leather. When it comes to the patchouli, I actually do like the patchouli in here. It's not the green, fresh interpretation of patchouli. It is sort of more that traditional dried earth, not musty with a T, but a little bit of a musky with a K, muskiness. A little bit of that dried barnyard earthiness that patchouli can give you, but still fresh and bright in some ways, like sun beaming through a field. And so there is a little bit of that patchouli in there, not a lot, which is also, I think, smart. But the rose, the blooming rose petals, it's just not enough rose. Not that I want a heavy, rose explosion of something super powdery or overly, drippingly sweet, cloying, or dark and sensual, but I want some rose in here to play with it. And this is really more so a, let's call it daytime leather fragrance versus a deep, dark, leather room, or like a lounge or a smoking room or a library, something like that. It's not so much that. It is brighter, fresher because of, I think, the rose and quite honestly the patchouli, but it's just not enough of the rose. I want it to be, if it's pink rose and leather, you think it's gonna be sort of bright and fresh and maybe dewy, and there really is so little of that. The leather is the right type of leather to support that, but there's just not enough rose in here. And I'm not the biggest lover of rose fragrances, although get a good one and I will love it. I think Lofco's Blush Rose is incredible. Boy Smells does many rose-focused blends, though it's usually not the star of the show, but it is in some fragrances. You might think, oh, there's something soft and light in here, but I would be hard-pressed to pick out blindly, oh, that is rose. So I would love to see them continue playing with the idea of these type of fragrances, but I think the execution on this one was a bit of a miss. I haven't burned it yet, so TBD. I know that Kent of the Candle Channel said that for him, it continued to be heavily leather forward, which is not surprising. But again, more than anything, I appreciate that they are at least experimenting in something that is a bit more luxury focused. Then we'll move over to Afternoon Rainfall. Same packaging here, just in a different color, embossed wraparound label here. Funnily enough, two of these have this really nice textured lid that I think was part of a different collection. And then the Rose, and I believe also the Palo Santo, just had the straightforward plain gold lid. Afternoon Rainfall, notes on this one: soft raindrops tapping on your window, fresh aloe blossoms, hint of musk. Again, not telling you a whole lot. They're not really setting the scene for you. Raindrops, all right, so we know it's gonna be water. Aloe blossoms, not the aloe leaf, not the aloe vera, not the gel, but the blossom, so a floral that comes with aloe. And hint of musk, could be any kind of musk. That could go a million directions. Sniffing it, this one, I'm torn on this. The name is wrong. It's not, Afternoon Rainfall, this is a very specific type of beachy kind of rainfall where it's not a fresh, dewy spring rainfall or, on your window. The idea of the aloe blossoms, all right, so that does tell you there's gonna be a bit of a floral, and the musk, it doesn't tell you much really, but it does describe a bit of the scent, but it is not sort of that fresh, bright, blue, refreshing scent that usually a rainfall fragrance is going to be, either ozonic or very clean and cleansing and aquatic and maybe a little bit herbaceous or green. It is a softer, rounder, maybe it's the musk, maybe it's whatever that floral is from the aloe. I've never smelled, the blossom from aloe. I've actually never seen aloe blossom. I know most, cacti or succulents can, although the aloe plants I've had have never done that. So I don't know, maybe there are different species of aloe out there. But it is something very familiar in this scent. And going through, I feel like this is, though not a direct repackage or even repackage with a twist of the candles I'm about to list here, if I were to do sort of an in-depth comparison review, I would probably bring out the traditional cucumber melon. I would bring out beach grass from the Boardwalk collection from, let's say, 2012, and then released a couple times over the years, including 2019 when it was released as part of the summer semi-annual sale. Maybe the Renew and Refresh, which was, I believe, Seashore in that collection, and then Sea Salt Balsam from recent years. All are kind of in the same fragrance family where this is quite aquatic. So aquatic, yes, but more beachy aquatic, more of mist, not the, driftwood heavy sort of woody ozone that sometimes you get from the ocean breeze candles, but it's more so that than a spring rainfall at your home in the middle of wherever, The cucumber melon, there's something similar and sort of the feeling of when you think of melon, so I don't think there's much melon in here, but I think there could be a bit, and if so, it's that really, really round, like cantaloupe almost, that I'm not a big fan of. So it's not the bright, fresh, juicy a honeydew or the super refreshing wateriness of a watermelon. It's that rounder, more floral, creamy, like a cantaloupe. I feel like creamy cantaloupe could really be in here. Similarly, the beach grass candle has notes of morning dew, rain-soaked greens, and white freesia. Could they transfer aloe blossoms and freesia? Perhaps, but I think the aloe is more so, I thought, actual aloe versus the blossoms, because there are some other Bath & Body Works candles with aloe in them that have sort of this similar round softness to them. And then Sea Salt Balsam, I'd say it's least like that one. Maybe just the the waves or the ocean air. There's something similar to that as far as sister scent, a few miles down the beach. Certainly not that invigorating balsam that is in the Sea Salt Balsam. I just don't know how I feel about it. It's not like it is beachy, summery, tropical. Again, the way that I say that the fresh coconut and cotton is not so much a tropical coconut. This is, let's say, coastal, but it could be the Pacific Coast in Northern California, something that's not tropical. A hint of some sort of blossom, whether it is a freesia or the true aloe blossom or even like grapefruit blossom. We're always used to orange blossom, but I could see a little bit of like a bitterness from grapefruit or grapefruit blossom. Creaminess from, I want to say, really almost cantaloupe. I can't think of something else that is creamy in that way, but like a salted cantaloupe almost, with some sort of ozonic note. And sure, the musk could be one of a million things, but something that really does dull any brightness. It adds I don't want to say powderiness and I don't want to say sophistication, but it adds sort of some of that outdoorsy kind of animalic edge to it. Just a little bit dank, a little bit earthy. Yeah, a little dank. And not in a bad way. A little sort of like a green resin to it. I don't know, it's strange. I haven't burned it yet. Again, I haven't burned any of these yet, so it is a true first impression. I could see a cool spring day perhaps burning it because, again, I do appreciate there's not sort of the woody driftwood that comes in sort of a lot of aquatic or oceanic scents. Yeah, something a little dank green in there. So strange, not my favorite, but intriguing nonetheless. And then the final one from today's haul and review is Ginger Lime Twist. So same pattern there and just a lighter green. Notes on this one, fresh lime zest, fizzy ginger beer, and crushed mint leaves. Now this is really sort of, in many ways, like a take 3 on trying to do really a Moscow Mule or a ginger lime twist, as the name says. You know, they had Moscow Mule in 2020. They did the Champagne Margarita with very similar notes in late 2021, early 2022. And now here we go, late 22, early 23, Ginger Lime Twist. All, you know, insert this, pull this out, switch and swap between notes. But they've tried to do this before, and there's been a lot of lime forward scents over the years of Bath & Body Works, and very rarely, in my opinion, have they actually gotten it right. This almost could be an in-depth sniff comparison review with some of those other ones. Maybe let me know what you think. If time permits, maybe I'll do that as well, because I do want to talk through there are 4 or 5 that I really am thinking of comparing this to in my head. But first, get my nose on it. There's a sweetness to this, certainly. I would almost say like a crushed sugar or like a turbinado sugar could be in here, because there is a strong sweetness, that sugar cane again. Fresh lime zest, yeah, I would almost say maybe more like a lime leaf, like a kaffir lime leaf. You bite down on it, you get that lime taste, because it's really not lime juice or pulp. It really is just that zest or a little bit of that lime oil that you could also get even more green from the leaves. Ginger is in there, I would say, it feels to me almost like a candied ginger, not peppery, not strong, not super authentically fresh, but if you had some lime zest over crushed ice with some sugar, or in this case, really just candied ginger, where it's that chewy, covered in the sugar crystals ginger. So it still tastes like ginger, but it doesn't have that same type of peppery, top of your nose, pungent spiciness that true fresh ginger has. It's much more subdued with the sweetened candied side of it. I get that in here. And the mint leaves, maybe, but it's kind of funny to me because I mean, they're really, I wish they would decide, like, are you making a Moscow Mule? Are you making a mojito? Are you doing a weird like mix of them? Because typically you're not gonna have mint in a Moscow Mule, but you're not going to have ginger beer in a mojito. So it's just a little messy. And it comes across as a little messy in that sense. I will say this is probably this is the closest they've gotten to a real ginger and a real lime. When you think of Moscow Mule, that was just really missing, I think it was missing the ginger entirely, or the lime. One of the two, it was just completely missing. And so it really didn't make sense. It was not a Moscow Mule in that sense, because Moscow Mule has a lot of lime, not really zest, but lime juice in your Moscow Mule to counteract a really, really sweet ginger beer. And then years back, there was a sparkling limeade in 2015 that just was lime, but it wasn't zesty for me. It was kind of lean soap-like, even though it's supposed to be a refreshing, you know, sugary, sweet, tangy limeade. Missed the mark there. Key lime pie I liked, was sweet, was a sort of, you know, muffin, cakey lime, solid. Still not great, but it wasn't going for the, you know, lime beverage, didn't have the ginger in it. It was more traditional lime. It was solid. The tequila lime cupcake, which I believe was a failed test scent from 2014, 2015 in one of their market collections. Actually loved that. A little bit of like a cleaner zestiness, but it was a really good bakery gourmand fresh lime. More so on the zest than the juice, but it was really good. I liked that one a lot. I think that was probably one of the better ones they've had. Then Champagne Margarita, lemon lime soda. That didn't really have any of the ginger beer. It was not even really champagne. I liked it. I hauled and reviewed it. You can check that out. It was very, very popular throughout 2022, but it was really like lemon lime, effervescent, almost a summertime soda type of scent. And then my favorite lime they've ever released, Lime Ice, a failed test scent, 2011. So I know I'm like pulling from the depth of the vaults on that one. It was what a beautiful, true, crushed lime ice sort of popsicle. And you can check out my Harry Bring Them Back from the Vault summer series from early 2022 when I did the summer collection there. I talked about lime ice because it's such a beautiful Sack & Co. era scent. And that was the best lime I've smelled at Bath & Body Works. This leans to me, it almost feels like Thai food, not in a bad way, but it is such a sweet candied ginger with a bit of that lime zest, but so sugary that it doesn't have any of the zippiness that I would hope from lime zest specifically. And it doesn't have an effervescent, they call fizzy ginger beer. No, I don't get effervescence. And I would want some ginger beer, though ginger beer itself is quite sweet. Ginger beer compared to ginger ale, if you're not familiar, it's not beer, actually, it's not alcoholic. It is really just like your ginger ale, but with a much higher concentration of ginger, usually naturally, truly flavored with authentic, real ginger root. This, however, is more like a ginger ale. It doesn't have that bite, that peppery, that, spiciness on your nose that I would hope a ginger lime twist would be. And I think maybe that the mint they say here almost feels like these sort of same mintiness that sometimes basil has. So to me, this again leans more towards Thai food in that sense of you got some basil in there, some Thai basil that can lean either a little bit minty or even towards like anise licorice. You have a soft cooked candied like ginger. You have a bit of the lime zest or even maybe some kaffir lime leaves. Would make a great, rice dish or noodle dish, but it's not so much a beverage like they're selling it as. So I'd like to hear, this is one of those that, like pumpkin peanut brittle, where we heard from the perfumer who created it a few years back on just a random feature on the Facebook page for Bath & Body Works. The perfumer who created it talked about the different notes that were used from her fragrance organ, and she was able to put in like roasted sesame and even some seaweed and all these different notes that were making sort of for her this traditional treat that then was marketed from Bath & Body Works as pumpkin peanut brittle, like very bringing it to the mainstream. But it was those notes were there. And so I'm curious if this is one of those fragrances where, with a different brand, with different marketing, this could be something really specific and, for lack of a better term, exotic and international in that way, where it would be elevated beyond fizzy ginger beer and lime zest. Because I think that it could be more complex than that, because it doesn't really match that. Being super picky, nitty gritty. You're gonna smell this, you're gonna think, okay, I get ginger, I get lime, it's ginger lime twist. But I'm really being picky and getting deep down into like, what do these notes mean? Because you smelled 20 lime candles, you've probably smelled 18 different variations of lime. And so I'm just being picky as to how it could be marketed. So all that to say, it's nice. I think it'll be refreshing. It is similar to the afternoon rainfall in that there's something soft to this where it keeps it from being a bright, fresh, juicy, zesty candle. Not quite musky, but there is a soft roundness that both of these kind of share in their execution. Though of course this is much more powdery musky with musk note in it. So that is my, admittedly, as per usual, long first impressions overview, essentially an in-depth sniff comparison review. But that is it for this collection. Let me know if you purchased these, what you liked, hits or misses. And until next time, take care.